Okay, so we're joined by Hillel Fuld, who is one of the most prominent Israel activists, spokespeople out there on social media to date. And he's a great friend of the channel. And we've had some fantastic conversations in the past. And Hillel, honestly, you were one of the first people I wanted to speak to as we learned about the details of this proposed ceasefire, I want to call it. I know people like to call it a peace deal. It's a ceasefire. What are your initial reactions to this?
I think we got to count our blessings. I don't think it's a perfect deal by any means. I don't think there can be a perfect deal by any means. But the fact that we're getting all of our hostages back, I feel like many people are taking for granted. That was never even discussed. It was never even on the table to release them all, in one shot. The fact that we're getting them all back is astronomical. Now, again, am I happy that we're releasing murderers? Of course not. Am I happy about many of the clauses in this deal? No. But let's get our hostages back. Like, this is our top priority right now. Now, we don't know yet the details of the second and the third phases of this deal. In the first phase, we're getting our hostages back, and yes, we're letting out some murderers. My understanding is we're not letting out the big names, the Sinwars, the Barghoutis, but I don't know. Either way, right now, from my perspective, I'm compartmentalizing, and I'm like, we're getting those guys back, and I think that you and I have spoken about this multiple times, that, my message has been, like, consistently for the past 2 years, we will dance again. And on Simchat Torah, coming up in a couple of days, we are expected to get those hostages back, reunited with their families on that day. And we will indeed dance again.
What do you think brought Hamas to do this? Because like you, I was thinking, why would it be in Hamas's interest? Is it basically that there are a bunch of Arab countries that have forced Hamas's hands?
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear. I mean, Hamas, doesn't understand the concept of surrender. They're going to try to spin this as a victory, but this is an utter embarrassment, humiliation for them. And again, it doesn't matter how many people give out candies in Gaza. It doesn't matter how they spin this. The reality is they were pressured by Qatar. They were pressured by Egypt. They were pressured by every single Arab country. And this is unprecedented stuff where the Arab world is pressuring Hamas to accept a deal with Israel. Unprecedented. So, this is really astronomical in its importance and its significance. And I don't think Hamas had any choice. They were up against the wall. They realized, and the Arab world realized, that the show was over, and this was the best they were going to get, and it's the only lifeline that they're going to get, unless they want to, face complete obliteration of the entire organization. So, Hamas didn't want this. Hamas would have done anything to avoid this, but they had no choice.
And I wonder what your reflections are on Qatar here now getting involved to try and push Hamas, because everyone was saying about Netanyahu, where they had that unsuccessful attempt at killing those Hamas leaders. They said, oh, you're escalating things. It's so dangerous you doing that, going after Qatar. And now, as a result of Netanyahu doing that, Qatar got worried. They got cold feet about their security. So America then, by doing this deal with Qatar, that gives them leverage to pressure Hamas.
Yeah, I maybe I'm a conspiracy theorist about this, but I actually think that Israel didn't want to take out those leaders. I think Israel missed on purpose. And the goal of that, and again, maybe that's not true, but the goal of that mission was accomplished, which is to send a clear message that Hamas leadership is safe nowhere, including on, Qatar soil, including on Iranian soil. These things like, when we took out Hania on Iranian soil, we just kind of like went on with our day. That's huge. That's absolutely huge. And the fact that Iran didn't do very much about it is, again, huge and unprecedented. So, I think that operation succeeded in that it sent the message it needed to send. And we see the result, that Qatar jumped back into the negotiations and made this deal happen by pressuring Hamas. So from my perspective, that attack in Qatar was a 100% success.
Yeah, and you're not in Israel right now, but obviously you live in Israel and you've got so many Israeli friends and family. What is the mood over there right now?
Yeah, I think the entire country is celebrating. And again, no one thinks this is a perfect deal. I guess some people do, but I would say the vast majority of Israel does not think this is a perfect deal. That being said, bringing back hostages, bringing back prisoners is a fundamental pillar of Judaism. And so the opportunity to bring these people back to reunite with their families is of astronomical importance. And so the entire country is indeed celebrating right now with the asterisk of what happens next. We don't know what happens next, but one of the objectives of the war was to bring the hostages back, which we're doing. The second objective of the war was to obliterate Hamas. That is yet to see how that unfolds.
Well, that was really going to be my next question. What is going to be of Hamas now? It looks like the details on what's going to actually occur within the Gaza that remains not under Israeli control. What do we think's going to happen there, or do we not know yet?
We don't know. We don't have any confirmation on that. Just from what Trump has been saying and what I know Israel will demand, Hamas will not rule Gaza. Where they'll go, if Israel gives them immunity and says you can leave Gaza and we won't kill you in another country, not ideal by any means, but so be it. They don't affect my life. I don't care. But Gaza will no longer be ruled by Hamas or the Palestinian Authority, which is again, like very significant. And so where they'll go and where the prisoners that we're releasing will go, yet to be seen. What I'm hearing is they'll be exiled out of Israel, not be allowed into Gaza or Judea and Samaria, which is great. Again, would I like to see them all dead? Of course. I made a joke a couple of minutes ago on Twitter, although maybe it's not a joke, that we should implant chips in these people, and as soon as they go back to terror, boom, pull a beeper operation on them. So, I don't know exactly what will happen to Gaza, who will rule Gaza. I know a lot of the discussions talked about an international force. All I know is that Israel will absolutely, under no circumstances, agree to have Hamas exist on its border for even another day.
So right, so that I mean that's really critical because that was, as you said, one of the war aims. Netanyahu said that Hamas must be obliterated. So are you saying that is that embedded into this deal that Hamas cannot rule Gaza, or you're saying just as an aside, regardless, Israel won't allow that?
No. I think it's very clear to President Trump. I think it's very clear to Netanyahu. I think it's very clear to Dermer and everybody else who's involved, including Kato, who's involved in the negotiations, that Hamas is done. And when I say done, and this is a big important point, right? Because we all want to see Hamas done, but Hamas done doesn't mean there's not a single Hamas terrorist left on planet Earth. Like when we defeated the Nazis, that doesn't mean there's not a single Nazi left on Earth. You're never gonna eliminate every single one of them. But when we say defeating Hamas, we mean Hamas no longer posing a threat on the state of Israel. And so, there absolutely, I think, is a consensus that they are not going to rule Gaza. I don't think anybody involved in the negotiation thinks that there's even that chance that Gaza will be involved in ruling Gaza. So, from my perspective, if we get rid of Hamas ruling over Gaza and we get rid of, them holding our hostages, we get them back, we've won. I mean, we've won anyway. I mean, the list of things that we've achieved in this war, I believe, is far exceeded even what Israel in their wildest dreams would have imagined. I mean, it is absolutely not an exaggeration to say that the Middle East has changed forever. I mean, you look at Lebanon and Hezbollah's done. You look at Syria and a possible peace treaty with Syria, that's unprecedented, right? I mean, you have some serious talks about an Abraham Accords 2.0. And so this all happened. All of it happened by Israel applying military pressure when the rest of the world said not to. They told us not to go into Lebanon. They told us not to go into Rafah. Told us not to go into Gaza City. And every time we did, we accomplished incredible things. And all of that pressure is what brought about this discussion and this potential deal. And anybody who says otherwise is kidding themselves. Of course, we owe Trump, a credit for this. We owe God credit for this. But at the end of the day, it's the military pressure applied by the IDF that brought about this deal that will hopefully close, and we will see our hostages back within a matter of days, which is hard to even fathom. But here we are.
How do you feel about critics that come from the right, and often the religious right as well in Israel, that feel like we're always stopped from going far enough to finishing the job? Whether it was with Iran, we took away their nuclear capabilities, but we could have destroyed the regime. Trump held us back. In Gaza as well, with Hamas, and maybe saying we should have control of Gaza. If we don't finish off the whole Palestinian cause, it's inevitable that these problems are going to continue to fester. And even on the hostages, they say, we're of course, everyone's thrilled at what's happened here, but we are releasing thousands of prisoners. The Shalit deal led to Sinwar being released, and potentially you're creating terrorist industry and incentivizing all of this.
I mean, I agree with every single word that you just said. And that's why it's a very, very complex situation. And that is why I thank God every day that I'm not in Bibi Netanyahu's shoes. Those are all valid points.
But the critique of Netanyahu is that he's a genius at maintaining the status quo.
I mean, clearly that's not the case. There's nothing status quo about the way the Middle East looks today. I mean, he's changed everything, literally. But those are all valid points, right? For me, as maybe this is short-sighted and maybe this is even irresponsible, for me right now, I have to think about today, and I have to think about those hostages rotting in those dungeons of hell in Gaza, And that, to me, takes priority over everything. And so, yeah, we're going to have to figure out how we release these prisoners, what we do about it. For sure, these are all very complicated things. But I have a very hard time with someone who says, you know, let the hostages continue to rot in hell. Like, how are you going to look a mother in the eyes and say, sorry, we're leaving your child in Gaza to be raped and tortured and starved every day? It's just unacceptable. So, yeah, it's all valid. And that's what makes it a very complex situation. But I believe, as an observant Jew, that redeeming and releasing our prisoners and hostages is of utmost importance. And that trumps everything, no pun intended.
What do you think the future holds now within the region, between Israel, not the Palestinian issue, but also Arab nations, Abraham Accords and beyond?
So I can't help but answer as an observant Jew, right? I mean, I've been looking at this war from basically day one, or at least a few months in, from a religious perspective, because the situation has become so ludicrous and so disconnected from reality and so backwards that you cannot look at the war and say this is man-made. Like, you just can't. You can't look at a person like Candace Owens, who literally was pro-Israel like 30 seconds ago and has gone full-blown mustache man on Israel, right? Like, full-blown. Her rhetoric is literally Nazi rhetoric, right? So you can't explain this without saying God's pulling the strings. Now, why God is doing this, I don't know. And so from a religious perspective, the script is that the whole world was against us. Now the whole world is joining us, and hopefully Abraham Accords will lead to more peace in the region and eventually world peace, which will, again, eventually, in my religious view, lead to the end of days when Mashiach comes and, you know, the final redemption.
That sounds like a good plan to me.
That's where it's headed, man. That's where it's headed.
No, I completely agree with you. And I really appreciate how you see beyond just the political and you see the spiritual dimensions, which is, of course, true. And it's patently obvious. And people that can't see that, their heads are buried in the sand. So, Hillel, thank you as ever for your staunch reporting and coverage and insights. Always greatly appreciated. And for doing this at the last minute, I really appreciate it.
If I may just add one thing, is that okay?
Sure, please.
One more thing. So we didn't talk about the anti-Semitism issue. It's a topic for another time. But, you know, anti-Semitism is getting full. I mean, really, it's not even an exaggeration to say that it's gotten to pre-Holocaust Europe levels of anti-Semitism. And if Mamdani wins, I mean, it's game over, right? So, like the war, which, of course, October 7th was terribly dark and tragic, but in parallel, not to negate that, amazing things happened as a result. And anti-Semitism is terrible, of course. But as a result of anti-Semitism, I believe that we will start seeing mass aliyah. And I mean mass. I mean Jews exiling, leaving New York and other places, London, you know, Sydney, UK, everywhere, Canada, everywhere, to come home because they're starting to realize they have no future there. And so while, of course, no one likes anti-Semitism, no one wants to see anti-Semitism, I believe, and again, this is based on my religious belief, that we are going to see a massive, unprecedented ingathering of the exiles in parallel to everything we just described, which will be part of the final redemption, Mashiach coming. And that's really what I believe.
I think these things, how exactly they will unfold is unclear, but the end we all know and can agree upon. So, Hillel, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And as always, keep up the great work. A quick message before we finish. We have been lied to about the Palestinians from beginning till end. Have a watch of the trailer for our new documentary called The Invention of the Palestinians, How a Nation Was Invented to Destroy Another. And if you want to watch the full thing, just click on the link in the video description. The Palestinians. We have been told they are an ancient people fighting for their homeland which has been stolen from them. This narrative has fueled decades of conflict, painting Israel as an occupier of stolen land. But what if this identity is not of an ancient nation, but a modern, cynical invention? A political construct designed not to build a state, but to dismantle the Jewish one. In this JTV Plus documentary, we're going to uncover the truth behind the creation of the Palestinian identity. How it was forged in the fires of pan-Arabism, absent in historical records until strategically rebranded in the 1960s by leaders like Egyptian-born Yasser Arafat to rally global opposition against Israel. We'll trace its roots from the Ottoman era, where Palestine was a region without a distinct people, through the pre-1948 years of Arab rejectionism, before focusing on the pivotal shift of the 1960s when Arafat declared we should now be known as Palestinians, inventing symbols like the flag to mask genocidal aims. This wasn't about self-determination, it was about exploiting refugees, suppressing true aspirations under Arab rule, and perpetuating a war to destroy Israel. Join us as we debunk the myths of an ancient Palestinian nation, expose the strategic manipulation, and reveal how this construct has hindered peace while fueling hate. Fair but firm, this is the story of an identity weaponized, not for building a future, but for erasing one. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.